Welcome to Fantastic with Dana Carvey. Not saying I'm fantastic. It's just a word I use a lot in a passive-aggressive way. If there is a man on a cell phone wandering into an intersection, let's just say La Cienega and Santa Monica, and cars are honking and barely missing him, I can either say, look at that fucking prick, or I can say, fantastic. So that's how I use it. All my characters are passive-aggressive. Maybe you've noticed that. I'm afraid to say things. So Chris Rios is on a job out of town cutting hair and styling because she wanted to make money. And so this week we have in studio Frank Cronin, born and raised in Dublin, Ireland, is a cousin of the Carvey family. And Paula, my wife. So, nephew, whatever. He's related. Blood. Lots of blood. That's all I'm saying. And we're going to be talking with him in a minute. So I got that out of the way. But I thought I got the COVID shot 2 days ago. And one of my sons said he gave me a 50-50 chance of coming out of there alive. That's how much stuff is online. And I did develop a cramp in my calf, but I think it was coincidental from hiking and massaging it too hard, even though it's never happened to me before. I'm not going to say it's a blood clot, which is not no one's ever been happy hearing that word. It's a blood clot, which is my word for 2020 and parts of 2021. The virus is mutating. All right, so I'm going to do a couple things so people aren't so thrown, because then we're going to talk about space-time continuums, what it is in Ireland, and humanism stuff. So it'll be a slightly different flavor. So I don't want people like, shut up, Brian, they're going to do it different. Shut up. Those guys to be upset. So I'm going to do something not that original, but I thought because I used Paul McCartney's optimism and his voice from the Beatles' Yellow Submarine, it's not really Paul, as a very cheerful character. So here is Paul McCartney explaining the COVID vaccines for people who are afraid of them. Pfizer, Moderna.
Well, everyone's going to get a jabber. You sit in a chair and they swipe and then they jab you, And people go, hold on, I don't know, what's this? What's she putting in me? How does it work? All right. Well, they have a thing called M, little m, big R, big N, big A. mRNA, it's all a gobbly-goodly-doo. It's a magic thing. So what it does, they give you a jabber, and it goes into your body, and it starts instructing your cells. It's hey, cell, how you doing? I'd like you to get a little spiky for me. The cell goes, what's all that? Yes, just do it, why don't you? So the cell develops a thing called a spiky protein, and it looks like a coronavirus. This is where the plot gets thicker. Then the cell says no more instructions after they make the spiky. No more, and it gets rid of the RNA. It says, go out, no more you. I got the picture. All right. Then the cell says, okay, I get it. I'm going to display my spikies. So they kind of jut out the little cell hips or whatever. They go, look at me spiky. Here's where the immune system comes in. Says, hold on. Oh, I haven't seen you before. You don't belong here. I don't like your spikies. We're going to make antibodies like little tiny soldiers. So if we see spikies like that going on again, we're going to attack them with the antibody soldiers. It's as simple as that. So that's all you have to know. It goes in, it makes your cells turn into like a corona spiker, and then it develops all the warriors and little men, people to go after it. I need a tissue. I don't know.
My mouth was watering during that. Okay, so now you will not be afraid. Now cut tomorrow. Fauci's like, many more people are signing up for the COVID vaccine after Dana Goffo. What? Dana Fleeflo. What is his name? Dana Gano said as Paul McCartney to make it seem less frightening. I'll do a little of that. I wondered why Fauci, and I'm not against Fauci, people, sometimes I just make fun of everyone. I love Bruce Springsteen. I did him in the commercial last week. By the way, I don't think he really, I think some park ranger, from what I can gather, had it in for him. Everyone's had an authority figure at some point, just wants to fuck with you. And I think that's what happened with Bruce Springsteen. I like Bruce Springsteen, but his commercial made me laugh. I'll make fun of my own commercial too. Party on, Wayne. Okay, can I have the 90s back? So that's that. Shut up, Brian. He's explaining the podcast. So these first 6 podcasts, I've been a little hyperbolic because I've never had this much freedom, even on other podcasts, where I could just do something, whether it's self-indulgent or not, for like 10 minutes. So it was hard for me to stop. And I will continue to do live radical riffing, but in a minute we're going to have a real conversation, so don't go anywhere. Joe Biden, yeah, he's doing the town hall tonight. He's going to talk about it. Joe likes to have goals. Every politician is selling their wares, basically. You're going to get 100 million, excuse me. Come on, folks, 100 million shots in 100 days. 100 million in 100 days. Well, could you do 200 million in 100 days? That's great. Good idea. 200 million. 200 million vaccines. We did it. Come on now. I'm not kidding around. The billions of people. They know it. Number 1, the thing. Number 2, what they said. Number 3, you know the drill. Come on, folks. I'm Joe Biden. I'm sleepy. My eyes are getting tinier every day. I'm squinting, and I don't want to squint. Folks, this is hard. I go to bed at 6:30. This is tough, man. I'm almost 80. No, he's fine. For people, shut up, Brian. It's not a political thing. He's just making fun of the most powerful man in the free world, so just shut up. The reason we do fall down over intellectuals, conservative or liberal, we love intellectuals, and they intellectual signal to us by substituting a word for another word. So Fauci, I think, part of his power, I saw him the other day, he goes, well, I'm thinking that 2 masks. He's in this business for 45 years. He's known about the virus for a year. Now I'm thinking 2. It took me a long time. During the summer, I think, should people wear 2 masks? I was at a lake with my wife, and I ran it by. We couldn't figure it out. Would 2 be better? But I just did get it. Wear 2 masks so you'll prevent the virus from entering your nasus. That's where people drop to their knees and start crying. He said nasus, but he could have said nose. I don't know so many words like that. You want to protect your nasus. I could have said nose, but, I just won $1 million from Israel. They gave him $1 million just for being him. I'm Tony Fauci, and remember, as always, from the bottom of my heart, go fuck yourself. So there it is. There's that part. Now on to the regular part. So Francis Cronin grew up in Dublin, Ireland. Can you talk about your house? How many people lived in that house, and how many square feet, if you know, it was about?
So it was, at one point, we had 7 people and a cat. So we had a grandmother, 5 kids, 2 parents, and a cat wandering around a house the same size as a small garage kiosk. It's like 200 square feet. And, two small floors, 10 meters in either direction. What's that?
So probably like 450 square feet. I know that your brother grew to 6 feet tall, so that your parents sawed a hole in the wall so his feet would go out into the hallway, or what?
Yeah, so, and the weird thing is, in my neighborhood, the houses felt great, felt normal growing up, middle to upper working class, I like to call it. But basically, at the end of the bed, there was a need to create rooms. So with a chalkboard and a saw, my father
because your
made
brother when he was 5'4", it was fine, but then he grew and his feet were hitting the wall.
Yeah.
And your dad said, "We gotta saw a hole."
Yeah, we just had to make more rooms, and so rather than build an extension, we just carved up the house into many, many smaller rooms like Russian dolls. It was great, dude.
But it was really I've been there, and we kind of met your family when we went to Europe, but then you came and visited us in LA. And your sister Catherine Americans are charmed by the Irish accent. I mean, do you find it with some young ladies in Hollywood when they hear your accent, they're...
Yeah, over here, in Ireland, average Joe here, I'm exotic. It's like, it's pretty cool. I'll be honest, it's been of benefit in nearly every aspect of my life, just having a voice.
Well, people love the Irish and the Irish accent.
Yeah, what is it? 35 to 50 million people identify as Irish here. So it feels like you're in, like, when people meet you, they usually have a story about it, and then they usually either call you a spud muncher or a potato eater
or a drunk.
How are you since the famine? All that kind of stuff. With literally super careful about everything else and everybody else, but when it comes to the Irish, fucking.
You can, as a stand-up comedian, you can just obliterate the Irish.
Yeah.
And I did do a thing about a drunken Irish pilot in my special, and I got some online hate that was racist, you know.
Yeah. I think the Irish they usually take a joke about themselves because, it was so bad that no one really wants to feel the pain anymore. All those decades and generations of pain and oppression.
Because at the hands of the British, and you're talking about the history of Ireland.
Yeah, the history. It's like one of the things you learn early on in Ireland is that there was like 800 years of oppression and depression.
Well, yeah, because the British were over there, you know.
Hold on. Hey, look it over there. We just take a rowboat, fire a gun,
Yes,
yeah, so you were not treated well by the British government for the last 1,000 years.
Yeah, and it's
let's just call it out. I mean,
Yeah, and no hard feelings, guys. I love the Brits now, and we're on a much better footing. Thank God. We've most of Ireland has made peace. But when I was growing up, on the news most nights, there would be stories about either a kneecapping, a bombing, or some soldiers or some people being attacked. So it's definitely ingrained in your psyche growing up. And then as you get older, you realize like, oh, wow, that's probably like a serious thing to be hearing every night on the news,
Well, for people who don't really know this in the abstract, Great Britain decided to sort of kind of take over Northern Ireland and started bringing in British citizens who were Protestant into Northern Ireland. And that became, everyone thinks that should be Ireland. And even now, it's still, and so the divide became religious too, because Catholic was indigenous Irish, and then Protestant was essentially from
it's
Britain.
Israel, Palestine in the rain, basically.
With a lot of Guinness.
Yeah, and it's very difficult. Even now, I have to be very careful, how I portray my belief system about where the border is or isn't. I personally just think of Ireland as Ireland. Some people think of Ireland as having a border and part of it being owned by the British. And then there's other people who believe that Northern Ireland is a state and a country in and of itself, that kind of Ulster.
So it goes that way.
Yeah, it gets complex quick, and then people get kneecapped. It's pretty intense.
Well, that one thing I always found, or I found very, very charming about your family, first of all, your dad worked for Guinness for 60 years, or 50 years.
Yeah.
And so did my mother-in-law, Dex's grandmother. And they would encourage you to have a Guinness at lunch.
Yeah.
And that on the factory floor, wherever you were, it was cordoned off behind sort of a partition or a curtain. At any time during your shift, anytime, you could go over and pour yourself a pint of Guinness, which for people who don't know, Guinness is actually a very light beer. Like its alcohol level is in the 4% range, which allows people to drink a lot of them in a pub and not be inebriated. But eventually you could get shit-faced on Guinness.
Yeah, and the reality is it's a real part of the culture. Just obviously we're, what was it, the richest per capita in 2010 humans, and then there's a really good education system. We got Trinity College, University College, we got all the universities, but that's all set against a background and culture of like enjoyable heavy drinking. You know what I mean? It's wet over there. You want to get in out of the rain. You want to pound a few pints, tell a few stories, listen to a bit of music.
Well, for people who haven't been there, obviously a lot of the American corporations went over there for the highly educated workforce.
Yeah.
People don't know that the Irish, if you've never been there, you're in a pub or you're around Irish people, they talk in poetry from an American point of view. And they say things in such wonderful ways. Like your dad, he's a really great storyteller, and he says things in off-kilter ways. Like I was hiking with him up in Northern California, and he's looking down on this little town, Mill Valley, and he just noticed that there was a lot of growth there, plants and stuff.
Yeah.
But the way he said it was, he said, "I'm glad to see the trees are still winning."
Yeah.
So that's a poetic way of saying that there hasn't been so much development that you've destroyed the forest. Glad to see the trees are winning.
Yeah, it's wild, man. You know, part of the Irish psyche is that we're all, apart from, okay, so we got the oppression, we got the background of hard drinking and hard living in the rain, and then we have some of the great poets and the great, you know, and that's really, you know, ingrained in you growing up. Like you're learning off poetry in school from a young age.
Oh, okay.
A lot of great writers, and you know, it's appreciated. Storytelling in a pub is appreciated. Storytelling among friends, it's appreciated to a level that I haven't seen in my travels.
Yeah,
so it's like I would say it's kind of part of the culture is to be able to tell a story and create a picture.
Yeah, and I think it is. It's all you Cronins can tell a good story. I think also what I found when I first got to know your family as an adult was a certain humility, or you know, just that America is so intense, and it'll sound funny in a minute, but when your mom and dad first saw a supermarket, because when I was in the country in Ireland, there'd be a pantry. There's your, you know, 2 choices of cereal, maybe milk, and it was simple, and I get that. But a supermarket, it's hard to wrap your mind around. And your mom just asked very sincerely, "Why do you need so many cereals?" Because there was like 90 choices. But it really blew their. At one point, your dad came around the supermarket and just looked at the frozen section and said, "Look at all the yogurt."
Well, yeah. Now, like Ireland is, you know, America, and maybe even more choices right now. It went intergalactic with the choices. But yeah, 20 years,
it did.
20 years, 25 years ago when I met you guys first and we were visiting over here. Yeah, it was kind of shocking. We walk into a 7-Eleven. Wait, first of all, the 7-Eleven is open at night. What's going on there? That's crazy. That's crazy. What are you doing? And then you go inside and there's fridges, as you say, like a wall of fridges, 400 different drinks. And so you're left with so many choices. It's almost harder to live here because you just like so many choices. You know, you just go, "I'll have that." Why?
Yes.
Because it's the only thing there at that time.
I know, and also just all these sort of different ways you can go with your life. I mean, Ireland is it's a small island. It's about 4 or 5 million people.
Yeah.
And in America, it's just like there's almost too many choices. You could go here. You could be a blackjack dealer in Vegas. You could live in a cabin in Montana. You know.
Yeah, part of the reason I think Irish people they have a good reputation for being polite and courteous and friendly and humble is because it's a relatively small island, like 7 hours north to south, 4 hours east to west. And if you get it wrong with somebody's family member, you'll probably see them again. So it could be just fear. It might not
funny.
be. It might
it's like tribalism or clans, basically. Basically.
Well, like if you rub somebody's sister up the wrong way, there's a good chance you'll meet the brother within 2 to 3 years, you know? So you have to be...
Interesting.
Now, you know, that's a little bit of hyperbole, but when I think of America and how you could hide out if you, like, you know, serial killer, and then you can just bounce up the mountains for 3 years, no one will find you.
Yeah. You can go anywhere you want. But I remember my wife telling me that you and your siblings went through a period of kind of criminality, which most kids at a certain age do pranks and throw things and maybe steal something. What was the most intense thing you did in your formative years that you regret now? Like teenage years, 14 to 17, just a lot of fighting, right? Too.
Yeah, a lot of fighting. Yeah, 14 to 17, I'd say was for me looking back, it's kind of shocking that it was even. So there was just leaving the house, walking through the neighborhood, just like a lovely neighborhood, but large gangs of youths around, and so you'd be walking down the road, and all of a sudden you could be running for your life. You know, I got chased with a screwdriver once. I got, you know. Just weird things like that. You just don't want that in your life at 14 to 17. Probably about 20 fistfights, which is an odd... Not all my friends had this experience. I might have been a little bit deluded.
When you say fistfights, are other people watching?
So they were called, I think back in the day, they were called straighteners, like, because they straighten things out.
Right.
So after school, you're told to be somewhere, usually a parking lot on the far side of the road from the school, a big circle
Yeah.
forms around you, and then the antagonists come in, and they say, "You're gonna fight him. You're gonna fight him. Get in there, Cronin. Get in there." And then you hit each other while 100 people stand around spitting on you.
Literally?
Well, I mean, that's happened. I've seen that.
Because they're
and
just screaming. It's a visceral memory for me in 7th grade. So I entered high school at 90 pounds, 5'1".
Yeah.
So I must have been about 70 pounds. And then some guy got mad at me. I think his name was Dave, whatever. Okay, we'll fight after school. So I instantly regretted it, and was just so nervous all day.
Yeah,
and
terrified.
And then we started, you do these roundhouse punches. You have no idea, elbow in and lower body, just roundhouse punches. And then it gets into wrestling, then it breaks up.
Yeah.
But there was a kid, a 5th grader, was like blown away by the fight. Because he was like, well, we could hear the punches, man. I could hear the punches. But no, there's no marks, no foul. I think that was my last official fight. Someone tried to fight my brother where he works, his place he works in Connecticut. And because I'm going to fight you. My brother said, no, you're not. And he said, why? And my brother said, because we're not in 5th grade.
Well, that's it. You grow out of it.
Yeah, you go, come on.
Yeah.
Most fights are ugly and stupid and bloody and look ridiculous.
Yeah, the only reason that I ever got into a fight, and I generally lost, to be honest, but the only reason I ever got into a fight was because I would see them again, and if I didn't, it was a year or 2 years, 3 years of torture coming. So you would just fight, and then they would leave you alone. I remember one time I got into a fight, and I had just started Taekwondo. It was probably the last fight that I had ever got into. And I'm standing in front of him, he's standing in front of me, big circle of people. It's after gym class, right? And he's like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. And I had just been learning these kicks, and I'd been kicking a punch bag all week, and I kicked him right in the solar plexus, right under his pecs. And absolutely accidental. But he was winded and down, and from then on, I never had another problem. That was about 16 or 17 years of age. Thank God.
Wow.
But yeah, I don't take pride in the criminality, but the criminality, it only escalated to the, getting into building sites and breaking things or throwing cavity blocks off the top of things, or if somebody had robbed a car in a nearby neighborhood, we would go and the next day and find the car and maybe, see if we could burn it out, that kind of thing.
I'd forgotten about this one in terms of breaking in stuff. When you go to the school, if you go back to your school and it's like Sunday afternoon, it's kind of when you're on campus and no one's around.
Yeah.
So me and Steve Lee, I think what we did was we found a popsicle stick and we sharpened it and kept trying the lock to the ice cream where they kept the ice cream and kept going. As far as I remember, we somehow picked the lock with a sharpened ice cream stick that had been discarded and then just ate ourselves silly with ice cream and left.
Yeah. I had a weird thing. I had a weird thing about taking things because I always thought, that was my biggest fear was to be caught doing anything. I think my mum caught me with her wallet one time when I was like in my early teens. And I got so scared. I go, I was threatened with bedtime at 6 o'clock for the rest of my life or something like that. But my thing was I think expending energy at speed. So we'd be, anything we could find and destroy, we would find and destroy. And looking back, it seems crazy, but you're dealing with hormones you have no control over, right?
Well, you were always you had a lot of energy. I remember some point we were at your house in Dublin in the early 90s. So you were a kid, 10, 11 or something. And I was talking to Catherine, and then you just came out and just started running. I said, where's he going? And he's just kind of running around a block. So you would just run laps around the block.
Yeah. Well, we knew you had a history in cross-country running.
Right.
And I was my parents used to call me Speedy because I wouldn't, just way too much energy, probably ADHD, maybe a little bit of methamphetamine. Yeah. We don't know at a young age.
Just youth.
Yeah, just youth. And so that was the thing, burn off the energy before bedtime and show your cousins. They'll be impressed. I think that was the start of the performance, probably.
Probably. I mean, I think it was a little bit exotic because I was over there the first time doing the Wayne's World press junket. So there's some awareness that I was in a movie.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think it was your sister saying to me, and she was probably 8 or something, she says, are you terribly rich? I said, well, I don't know about that. And she goes, do you have your own swimming pool? And I said, well, actually, I do in LA. Oh, grand. And then when Cronin's came out to visit us.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed is you were very tough. You were hardy and you were impervious to cold. Like it was in the valley in the winter, but you guys were all sleeping outside with a bare blanket, just on lounges outside. There was a guest house you could have slept in. You're just outside.
Yeah, and
sleeping not just in your clothes, laying back.
Yeah, that was so kind of you guys, because you and Paula, you and Paula were my age, right? You guys were just, and you were strapped to a rocket ship. And I remember Dex was there. I remember there was a basketball court outside, and Dex was the same size as the basketball.
Dex was very young.
And I didn't know you didn't know us, but you let us stay in your. You had this amazing soundproofed outhouse, like, I don't know, probably bigger than our house. It was amazing.
We built that, yeah. It was for...
And a wall of sound system that was like, it was incredible. And DVD Blu-ray was the new thing.
I know. And it never quite worked. I was so ahead of my time. Now you can buy something at Best Buy, hook it up with a sound bar. But then I remember I'd have people over, and I was like in technical hell.
Yeah.
I think there's a switch. I mean, they used to tease me about that.
Yeah, you were so kind, man. And then when we were going to the airport on the last day, this was like literally magical and very Hollywood because you have to remember, small house, Ireland. We're over in America, blue skies and palm trees. It's insane.
LA, Hollywood.
Yeah, it's the real
sunshine.
deal. And then on the last day to get to the airport, you were super cool. You got us a limo, and our whole family rode in a limo to the airport, dude. It's such a, like, those kind of memories, man, to get those early on in life, probably why I got into showbiz.
Well, I know it does look pretty good from the outside. I did love having that swimming pool. I haven't had one since. But swimming pool just is like a vacation. You're looking at like a visual vacation to me. Even if you're not in the swimming pool, it's just sort of because hotels have swimming pools. But you guys are always so humble and sweet about it. I mean, your dad, we all went to Disneyland. And your dad went down Splash Mountain, and then he got off and he kneeled down and kissed the ground as a joke. But then his back went out, so he was laid out because all those rides.
Yeah.
But he's like a very youthful, exuberant character. Your dad.
Yeah, and then just sleeping out at the pool at night, right? He slept on one of the deck chairs.
Yeah, just laid back. I think just in a short sleeve shirt or something. It's like 50 degrees. You guys just didn't get cold.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, I think it was just so stimulating. Ireland back then, like Ireland now, super advanced. You know, I have to say that about my country.
Wealthier, more sophisticated.
But back then, you know, we had 5 channels. You know, Oprah had just appeared on the TV screen, so we were just starting to have like outside culture pouring into our island.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And so, and all these ideas, these advanced ideas about, well, you can talk about your feelings. And we're like, what? No, we can't. What are you talking about? There's people with screwdrivers outside. You know what I mean? So,
that's the Oprah effect globally of just spirituality and self-improvement.
She came in on a channel called the Lifestyle Channel. Now, we didn't even know there was a thing that you could have, which was a lifestyle. We were just like functionally living, enjoying life, and moving forward in a somewhat community way. But we didn't know you could actually have a lifestyle, which was so outside of the norm, you can also curate your life. Don't you just have enough to get along?
What you doing, Dana Carvey?
We're talking with Francis Cronin and about his life in Dublin and all the interesting changes in the last 25 years, the gentrification of Ireland as a sophisticated place. So it's very interesting that I did catch that last wave of sort of humble, more innocent Ireland, and then it exploded economically to certain. It was called the Celtic Tiger. At given points, you would read that it was advancing faster than any economy in the Western world.
It was jarring even for my, living through it. It was a little bit jarring because I grew up and you were truly grounded in the community. So there was not a lot of outside influence entering the house. And then the internet hit, and then there was outside influence. And the lifestyle channel came in with Oprah. And then we have all these outside ideas coming in, and people are talking about their feelings now. And then the Celtic Tiger, as you say, hit. So the economic boom, 10% corporate tax, Google's coming in, Facebook's coming in, all the money in the world is coming in. And then all of a sudden, the Irish people who kind of were grounded in a really deep understanding of hard work and work ethic and maybe religion and you know generational community bonding, were all of a sudden kind of fixated on self-development.
Yeah.
And they had money. and now we're traveling, and now we're the richest. 2010, I think the richest per
Yeah.
capita. So it was like a rocket
Interesting.
ship, and
Yeah.
so a lot of teenagers were like, I couldn't really relate to the people as easily like that came 10 years after me. They seemed like on a different kind of.
Okay. So you were
different
kind of
planet.
caught that last wave of so-called innocence in a sense. But how did you process the Catholic Church? Because the Catholic Church and your local priest and confession, I mean, it's Catholicism.
Wow, yeah.
Which my mother-in-law is like very, very Catholic.
Yeah.
She's a wonderful person, and goes to Catholic Church every day.
Yeah.
And the good side of the Catholic faith is the idea of being at service.
Yeah.
Like, I am basically here to help my fellow man. That's the good side of it. There's other sides we don't have to go into.
Yeah. Well, speaking of other sides, I was an altar boy for 6 years, got out, never got reamed. Had a great time.
So wait a minute. So you never got molested?
No, hey, would you believe it was amazing? So I'm around. Yes, nothing happened. Thank God, literally. So yeah, every day I would go to mass. I would be an altar boy 3 times a week at church around the corner from my house for 5 years, wearing some sort of dress with a cross on the front of it. Never questioned it. The priests would be, really, really nice, really, really good, solid people. And there was song, there was incense, it's really interesting how we just take it for granted that's part of your life.
I've gone back to the Good Shepherd with Paula, although raised Lutheran, which you could kind of tell even the pastor didn't believe that much. This is a good thing we're doing. Is it really true? I'm not sure. That was the vibe I got from Pastor Jerry, who had desert boots, and he was like 32. But I've gone back occasionally just to see what it's all about. So going to a Catholic church now, it's like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
This is designed to kind of go to the idea of how did we get here and what happens when we die? Because that's just, dogs don't think that. Maybe a dolphin does. Maybe a whale feels sad it's going to die. I'm not sure anything else on the planet understands that there's a due date for their mortality. So I looked at it with a lot less judgment. I kind of thought people are suffering, and this is just a way to go and sort of take a knee and kind of like, and sing songs. So
yeah, you know what? You don't know what you're not missing. So we were just living in that sauce. So you're just in Ireland. Everyone is kind of goes to mass on a Sunday. It was a great place to hang out. You get to see everybody. There was pretty much everybody was kind of earning the same. If they did have something they didn't show you, you didn't know. There was no comparative living like social media.
Yeah, because your dad retired at a certain age with all of his friends got the golden parachute from Guinness. And so they all made similar wages and had similar houses and then similar retirements. So there was a sweetness to that,
Yeah, and it truly was. It felt like it was about character as opposed to clout. It's like you kind of had to earn it, and again, small island. So, if you didn't help your neighbors in with the shopping bags, then the older neighbors had the right on the street to say, help them in with the shopping bags.
Well,
that's what, I can't imagine that happening now, even,
I love that. And now I'm remembering that I could not, when you guys were visiting us up in the Marin County house, I could never mention anything that needed repair or I couldn't figure out. Because then you guys would go right to work. I think I mentioned the cable TV wasn't working downstairs. And either you or Alex was down there for like 3 hours figuring it out. So then I was a little bit like, that fence needs to get painted. Well, we thought we'd get some paint for you.
Well, yeah, Dana, like when you come and you live in California, right? There's a magic over here because you're allowed to be yourself here more than anywhere that I knew about, right? So
that's nice.
So Ireland is magic in its way. It's one way to be. And there's many ways to be in Ireland. But coming here kind of taught me, that older Ireland was quite repressive. It was, maybe you didn't know that you were, somewhat trapped in an ideology and within like some archaic society. But then all of a sudden it rocket shipped. With the money, with the dot-com boom and the Lifestyle Channel and Oprah, we went intergalactic quick.
And you, with your personality, being an adventurer, you did join the Irish Army.
Yeah.
And then you served as sort of part of the United Nations in Liberia.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't want to hear about that. No, what the fuck? So what, I don't know, What was it about you that made you kind of go, okay, I'm going to go into the army voluntarily?
It was options. Basically, you thought you could do anything, but the options that presented themselves were either
Okay.
university or one of my friends. His brother was in the army and he had a fast motorbike, and I remember thinking, I want the fast motorbike. The guy was cool, and we were at a house party one night, about 30 people there. He slept on the tiled floor in the kitchen, and then he woke up and did the dishes, and he had a girlfriend. And I thought, he's got a girlfriend, a motorbike, he can sleep on the tiled floor. I want to be that.
Wow, what a great statement.
So I just thought, this guy's cool. And then he said, well, why don't you come out and see the Air Force Base? So, dude, he's got a bike called a Widowmaker, right? It's like 1,500 million cc or whatever.
Wow.
Get on the back of it. We do 130 miles an hour down the road, and that was it. I don't even remember the base. I just remember I want this feeling, and that made me join.
So you
the
were
Air
kind
Corps.
of a thrill seeker. You and Dex have jumped out of airplanes and stuff.
Yeah, he does back-to-back upside down loops on his BMX, right?
This is correct. Yeah.
Back in the day. But, just for a second, I just want people listening to remember, because you have to remember for yourself, because there's so much noise on all of us in the American society. It's so dynamic and so compare and despair. And I know that social media is all over the world. But you have two lanes. One is success, and look at me, look what I'm doing. And then you also have this other lane of like, hey man, what if I'm just going to be a really good person? And I know it's super corny, but you meet people who are just really nice, and they could be a waitress or a janitor, or have no real money, but they're just incredibly kind and generous, and you always appreciate people like that, as opposed to when you meet a prick.
Yeah, it's lovely, man. You want, if you can do both, you probably have a great life. Like if you can integrate being wealthy, and then you could use that to do nice things, like give your cousin a spot on your epic podcast, right? But I like it. The older I get, the less sexy showbiz looks. Like it's not the number one. I want to do the showbiz, but I want to be a grounded, happy individual because death is coming.
Well, that is the trick. We always have the twin pillars from American society of Marilyn Monroe and Elvis Presley. Yeah. And they connect on some level of what fame can do to you, and loneliness, and every human being you look at wants something, or is your employee, and you think you're a clown. I mean, Elvis, according to his Priscilla, just thought he was a joke. I mean, he would have no idea how his legacy has grown, and the his brilliance really as his phrasing as a singer. He's like him, Sinatra. There's just a few. Yeah. But yeah, fame and show business will eat you up. It should be fun. Yeah. And it's very hard to go through life and not take it too seriously. Take it seriously, but not yourself seriously. And because I just did a commercial for Wayne's World for the Super Bowl, right? Yeah. And so then they had us do some ads. So we're doing the pictures. I'm holding up pizza as Garth with big eyes, and you can see them all over for Uber Eats. And I just thought, that is really funny. Yeah. I didn't think of anything like, is that a sellout or is that nice? I said, that is just hilarious. Mike and I holding up food like we're going to eat it, but it was for a good cause. Uber Eats, and any kind of place that eats local. Yeah, I got a lot of texts saying I saw it. It was amazing. So people love it, man. You guys kind of even in Ireland we have people walking around at Halloween wearing Garth costumes. So that's pretty insane. Like not many people pull off like a whole palette of characters that are worn around at Halloween. That's insane. It is definitely, like I would say, the feeling of going back to your high school, like where you went to high school. Yeah. And it's the same thing. It's empty and you're walking around it. That's sort of like surrealness. Yeah. Like, was I really here? Did this really happen? You get all this emotion. When you have anything that works in show business, and all of a sudden, because Garth was just a slow motion thing. It was like, but it became this incredibly likable character. Yeah. So it's kind of like some people take comfort from that. But the main thing about Wayne and Garth,
nice.
They just he worshipped his friend. Yeah. He totally supported his friend. He had no ego. Yeah. That's why he would laugh really hard at every joke that Wayne made and wanted to be like Wayne. So it just organically grew into this likable duo. So anyway,
well, that's it.
Yeah, so, we're going to call Larry now, but we could talk to you so we're going to book you for a second. Next time when we have Frank Cronin on, we're going to talk about his experiences in Africa and the United Nations, and that's fascinating, and then opening his own pub business in Guadalajara for several years before he made his way to Southern California. So
Dude, you're making me look good.'t you?
well, you're someone who eats up life. You're not afraid. I
Dude,
mean,
I got big teeth. I got to eat something.
we're gonna have to get a picture. No, this has been really, really interesting. But Larry's probably pacing in the room, all angry. No, nicest guy in the world. So we're just gonna check in with Larry because he's our constant with joke of the week. So let's call him.
Do you have the phone?
Oh, it's right down there. It's Brown Larry in contacts. Okay, here we go.
Larry's one of the funniest dudes alive.
Larry Bowles Brown. Everyone loves Larry. He's just has a fun vibe of him, and he's so funny. Yeah, good mind. And he's one of those comedians who has just a great laugh, Because when I see something supernaturally funny, I almost can't laugh. I laugh later.
Do you mind if I'm laughing out loud? It feels good.
Oh, no, yeah. The more the better.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great audio.
Sounds good. I'm happy.
Criminy. So, Larry, we did you got my text yesterday? With John Wayne and Pappy.
Yeah, hilarious.
No, Duke, no. We have this love of John Wayne because we've been talking with Frank Cronin for the last 45 minutes about his life in Ireland and philosophy. I did a few jokes up front, so it's a different flavor podcast. But just to reiterate, Larry and I have this love of John Wayne because the character of John Wayne had no fear in life. Mm-hmm. And he was angry at the idea that anyone would be afraid. So he's furious at the idea. I don't want to die in a submarine under the sea. What are you afraid of, Pappy? It's a submarine. They fill up with water sometimes. I don't mind it. Take us down. But, Duke, if we take it down another 10 feet, it's going to explode. I said take it down. Duke, can I ask you a question? What do you want, Pappy? Well, you look like you're about 60 years old. How'd you live this long? It's called luck, Pappy. Now take her down. So anyway, them philosophizing. But yeah, we were talking about just being a good person and Catholicism and how Ireland really changed in the last 25 years, became sophisticated. And Frank remembers specifically when Oprah Winfrey came to town on the local TV station because the culture was humble. Everyone sort of worked at Guinness, or everyone was middle class. There was not a lot of stuff going on, and then it exploded Ireland economically, and all this stuff happened, and now we're talking to you.
Wow.
We cover.
That sounds more interesting. I'd like to hear about that.
Well,
I mean, you're you've had a remarkable life.
Yes, I've avoided a day job for 40 years.
Well, anybody who does stand-up, which we've talked about somewhat in the past, or touched on the emotionally violent sport of stand-up, unless you have some kind of personality where you can treat it as a game and you bomb and you're not really wounded. But it's definitely an interesting life choice. Will you just tell us again how you, because I always find this, so Larry Brown, who got his, you can talk to the Bubbles thing, but he became Larry Bubbles Brown. Paula Poundstone named him that. So you start out and you have pretty good success fairly quickly, and that surprised you, right, in San Francisco?
That surprised me a lot, yeah. And I did pretty well. And then my third year into it, which is not long to be doing it, Jim McCauley from The Tonight Show saw me at Comedy Day, and they had me come down to L.A., and I was one audition away from getting The Tonight Show, and that was kind of a big deal. So, and then I had, you were telling me about that bomb you had with the girlfriend at the Comedy Store was just kind of itched away from you. And that was, I think my bomb was when I went down there to L.A. to get the Tonight Show, and it didn't go well, and I lost that. So
where were you? Were you at when you auditioned for the Tonight Show 3 years into stand-up in the early 80s? Did you audition at the Improv or the Comedy Store or someplace else?
Yeah, he saw me up here and liked me, so he invited me down there. So I did and Bud had me at the Improv before, so I don't know about you, but back then you either did the Comedy Store or the Improv. Most comics couldn't do both, so I did the Improv, and he got me down there, and then that went down like the Hindenburg. So, and I remember, you probably had this too. Comics of our generation, every comic I know from our generation, they wanted to be on Johnny Carson.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, and then it was kind of a big deal too, because I think he had like close to 20 million viewers back then, and if you had a good set on that Tonight Show, things could happen for you.
I know, and they never.
3 years into it, I wasn't ready, but.
Well, you had great jokes. I mean, they didn't know what to do with me. My feelings were a little hurt because Jim McCauley would come around. The guy was looking for the next guy to go on the Tonight Show. But looking back on it, I was basically doing sketch comedy. That's why I first did Chopping Broccoli, was at the piano at the Improv, at like a midnight show. Chopping Broccoli, whoever.
Really? Wow.
Shut up, Brian. He's talking about chopping broccoli, Brian. Those are two characters I do that listen to the podcast. That was a death trap, that playing the Improv at 8:05, when no one was there.
Yeah, that could be a tough room, right?
Horrible. It's Thursday night. There's 10 people there. And then you get off and they go, Norman Lear thought it was funny. And you just played a dead silence. Just literally horrible bombs. So what I kind of wanted to explore, what happened was you went on Letterman in 1987 in New York City, right?
Right.
And then you didn't go on Letterman until 2008.
I hold the record for the longest time between appearances on the Letterman.
So when I was living up in Marin County, there was this little theater called the Throckmorton that Mark Pitta was running a Tuesday night show at, and Robin Williams was there constantly. I was there constantly. You were there constantly. Mark Pitta was hosting, a great comic. And you were seen there, right? At the Throckmorton Theater?
They had an audition for the Letterman show, and Mark asked me if I wanted to be on it, and I said, I'll give it a try. And so I went on there and had a pretty good set, and I was told by the guy that booked it that, God, he said, you're perfect for the show, but I don't know if I can get you on because of your age. And
Wow.
I like the way entertainment is so open about the age.
Jeez, I know. We grew up with 85, 90-year-olds. We had Milton Berle and Bob Hope. They were all ancient, all of them. Buddy Hackett and Jack Benny. So now you're like 54 or something. That's a little late. Even though Letterman, you had to grow a beard because he got a little craggy, But that's after he got out. So we want to play this because you get the show eventually, and now all of a sudden you got to fly to New York, and you got to go face that Letterman audience in that studio. And
and I hadn't done TV in 10 years probably, and I was like, I'm kind of freaking out, and I almost thought about canceling it at one point.
Oh, I remember you almost didn't go, so good on you to go. It's an oomph because all that pressure, and I remember talking to you the day before, the week before, I don't remember, but just saying the audience is so hot, don't rush. So we can we're going to play it now. Do you have the one for Letterman 08? Yeah, so we're going to play it, and then Dex, stop it after his first laugh.
Wow.
So here you are.
Uh-oh.
You'll get the introduction. Let's just see. We're all listening. Yeah.
Our next guest is a very funny gentleman, and on August 2nd, he'll be performing at the Mont Bleu Casino in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Please welcome Larry Bubbles Brown. Larry, come on out.
Great music.
Well, calm down. Mr. Fun's here.
Okay, Larry, now what are you thinking right there? I'm assuming, not to interject, you're feeling 100 times more relaxed after you got that first line out.
Absolutely. I came out there first I'm watching Letterman start to introduce me, and I'm from the side watching him. I feel like I'm walking to my own execution.
Oh, I know the feeling.
So, yeah, absolutely. And I walked out there, and when I got that first laugh, I just, oh my God, I thought this is a good crowd.
So then you took your time. So you're going to tee up for your second joke. Let's hear it.
I know what you're all thinking. Looks like Rain Man and E.T. had a baby.
So now you've. No, Rain Tanner. That was only because you're trying to make fun of your looks, right? Because if the audience is trying to visualize. Yeah. First of all, that is a great joke. Rain Man and E.T. had a baby is funny because they were such iconic figures, and the idea that somehow they would create a human being and it's you is very funny, and it's so self-deprecating because you would assume that baby would be very funny looking. So that works on a lot of frequency. So now you're feeling really good. You've had 3 successful interchanges in a row.
Yeah.
So now you're kind of, let's play 3 jokes. Let's see you on a roll here.
Boy, it just keeps getting better. Someone stole my identity. Now he has no life.
Wow, deep laugh.
Double laugh.
I tried to donate my body to science. They said, try Goodwill. Finances are in shambles. I dropped out of college thinking wiffle ball was going pro. You know things are bad when you're trying to get on jury duty for the cash. It's not a good sign. $12 a day, pick me.
Okay. So now you've introduced your catchphrase, which is "Mah."
Yeah.
So now are you kind of in the zone, or is the back of your head going, I'm on Letterman and I'm killing, or you're just going, okay, next joke.
No, I'm thinking because they, like you had told me, and then Eddie Brill had told me before, that I constantly was racing through my material. And they slow down. So I noticed I haven't listened to this thing in ages, but I really slowed down there. So I'm thinking it's going to go. I think it's going okay, and I just want to get through it.
Well, I think, I saw the one in 87 just researching this last night. It took me 4 minutes, but I think that, the bubbles really did help. Thank you, Paula Poundstone. And the character, the way you stacked your first 2-3 jokes. So the audience gets that it's a self-deprecating act in totem, and then the jokes are really clever. So they want to applaud. So at some point, I think let's do a few more.
Professional people are killing me. I'm getting my physical. My doctor says, I need a list of all the women you've had sex with. Oh, man, do I have a disease? He goes, no, but if you get him in bed, I know I can.
Great joke. See? So there you go. So then that, for people before this, so the 3 or 4 or 5 before that led to that, Did it surprise you that got an applause break?
It did. Just like the crowd and I think there's one later there where they kind of had this long delayed laugh, which really surprised me. But
yes, and I think you actually kind of, at some point, you actually let out a little bit of a smile, like I saw your teeth.
Yeah.
And so you let them.
I broke character.
Well, but yeah, you let them into the idea that obviously we're all in on this joke together. Like a guy whose life is that bad is not looking good scoring on national television. So it's like the logic defeats itself. For a guy with a sucky life, he sure is clever and looks great on camera. Should we play? Let's just play a couple more and then we'll finish off.
Should I practice safe sex? He goes, if I were you, I'd take what I could get.
Just good jokes.
Told him I wanted to die with...
No, you see, Larry took that pause and you got that second wave from that pause.
Yeah, before I wasn't pausing or so I did that well, I guess.
Let me ask you a personal question. Right now, when you're hearing this, what are you feeling?
Well, I don't like to listen to myself. It's a little cringy, but it's kind of it's fun to remember how good that crowd was.
Well, I think sometimes you forgive yourself more because I don't like to look or listen at anything I do. But if I do sometimes look decades later, I can go, I was all right. That was pretty good, But I need a good 30 years. I put it on an iPad, and I don't have great eyesight. I push my chair back so the image is like the size of a baseball card, and I'm like 8 feet away, and then I just listen to part of it. Self-deprecate much? What's wrong with us? Those are great. Who writes better jokes for that character than you? I mean, the technicality, and we bring Jerry Seinfeld in, he would be, because, you know, he's such a technician. I mean, these are very well, tight crafted jokes, and they work syllable for syllable, you know? Because if you can get them in bed, I know I can. You know, you can't add a letter or a word or a syllable, right? At joke writing level, it is very technical. If you just over-explain it, your setups they're so concise, you know?
Well, that comes out of a fear of not wanting any silence, so it's trying to get to the laugh as quickly as I can.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I don't know. I think most comics don't you hate that when there's silence when you're on stage? And just, ooh.
You know, it's amazing it took me so many years to realize I was never meant to be a stand-up. I was always a sketch player, and the people I admired mostly were sketch players from variety shows in the 60s. And so I didn't, you know, honestly, Larry, I just do not, for me to do the rednecky jokes, that's about as good as I can write jokes. My brain thinks more in rhythm and phraseology, more like sketch, and that's why SNL worked for me so well. But in stand-up, I can do well in small rooms because they can see my attitude physically and my face and my it's more intimate, but it's hard in big rooms. But, you know, I jump around like a monkey and pace and yell, bring the guitar out. You come all quiet with a Diet Coke and destroy. Effortless. Never broke a sweat. I wanted to jack you up against the wall. Listen, squirt. Who's the headliner? But anyway, so we've learned a lot. You wrote a rednecky joke. Do you want to just tell us that? Do you have it before you do your joke of the week?
Rednecky. I like to. I do things in reverse. I chew tobacco and smoke a ham.
I'm Rednecky, the redneck comedian. I do things in reverse. I chew tobacco and smoke a ham. But you can, yeah, right, smoke a ham is the thing. Okay, got it. Yeah, I'm Rednecky, the redneck comedian. I do things backwards. Yeah, I had a joke I did yesterday, but it wasn't even a joke. They're just hard. Flip Schultz is helping me out a little bit, but okay. Yeah, I'm at my birthday. My mama always made me a special meal for my birthday. When I was 10 years old, she made my special birthday meal. I'm Redneck, the redneck comedian. She cut up a Slim Jim, put it in a big bowl of Fritos, doused it in ketchup. I say, happy birthday. She said, let's get your birthday cake out. What's that made of? Beef jerky? Spam. Something like that. It's a working, I don't have it. But the one Frank hasn't heard this one. This is actually okay. I Redneck, the redneck comedian. We got a bloodhound named Luke. We house train him real good. Every time he crap on the rug, he rub his own face in it. Come and get some. All right, Larry. Not bad. Okay, if I get Larry, the joke master. But really, listening to you objectively, seriously, that is just hot quality stand-up. Not only in the creation of the character, the rhythms, the writing. No wonder you killed. I'm jealous. I'm jealous. Dex wanted to play more. I said, I think we've heard enough.
We've heard enough. The funny thing about that was, I've been rushing my set, and you told me to slow down, and Bill told me to slow down. I've been rushing, and he's timing me. I did a couple of sets in New York the night before, and they both ran like 3 minutes and 40 seconds, and that crowd was so good that they were running late, and he said, okay, you can just, 4.5 minutes is good. Right before I went on, 4.5 minutes is good, and my set ran like a little over 6 minutes. Wow! And they actually had to cut the time to get the lead into the Craig Ferguson show because I ran over. So.
But you were killing so hard. It's just fun to
I
see
remember
it.
at one
Yeah.
point I just thought to myself, my God, I usually have a good sense of time. I said to myself, I think I've been out there kind of a long time.
It was enough to make just a great impression, and audiences love it when they connect to the character in the material, and it's 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes, and then it's every joke that's good keeps building on the previous jokes, and then the audience really relaxes, especially when you smile. They got a sense, okay, he or she, the comedian, is having fun. The jokes are great. We love them, and it's great when jokes build on themselves. You know, I think Seinfeld, I always bring up Jerry as the ultimate technician, brilliant writer, and he'll just bludgeon you. I mean, he'll go through the supermarket and he'll have so many laugh points that eventually he wears you down. He's gonna get an applause break, you know? So it's very interesting. Lettuce, what do you do with lettuce? You know, no, I just make fun. We'll have him on.
I think he said that, I think he was quoting Dangerfield. Dangerfield told him once, he said, the audience is like a hungry dog and jokes are like biscuits. You just keep giving them biscuits, they're happy.
Oh, man, I met Rodney Dangerfield, I think, at Catch a Rising Star in New York. And I think it was when I was doing One of the Boys, which is a story I'll tell at some point, with Mickey Rooney and Nathan Lane and Scatman Carruthers and Meg Ryan in New York, my first job in Rockefeller Center, which is a whole nother story, doing that as a straight man in a sweater and then sneaking up to the 8th floor in Rockefeller Center and watching Joe Piscopo and Eddie Murphy rehearse on the Thursdays and going, I'd like to be up here. And it took me 50 months, Pappy. But dude,
And
I told you I'd be...
I jacked Piscopo up against the wall.
Well, actually, my makeup artist for the One of the Boys show, where I was just a straight man, I was kind of a teen idol. I got like 6,000 letters from teenage girls. The next year, the show was off, and I kept checking the mailbox. I didn't get one letter. It was the first lesson in show business. They bailed me out.
Really?
Well, you know, I was towering over Mickey Rooney and Nathan Lane. I looked like a giant. I looked like a giant. I was like Wilt Chamberlain. But anyway, we'll get to that next time. But yeah, so what were we saying?
We were talking about Seinfeld.
Oh, my makeup artist and One of the Boys was also doing makeup on Saturday Night Live and was telling Joe Piscopo, there's a guy in this sitcom with Mickey Rooney. It's on NBC on Tuesday night, and he does a better Andy Rooney than you do. You know, not funny.
Wow.
That's funny. But I'd say the most nervous I've been was probably Carson. A gentleman joins us. He's having a bit of a success on Saturday Night Live as a character called the Church Lady. To bring him out, you know. So that was ugly nerves.
And you were nervous?
Psychotically
Did you do a set,
nervous.
or you...
I just sat. I never got on as a stand-up. I just sat. And suddenly Johnny's head and face is just right next to your face.
Oh, my God.
And the amount of makeup they would wear and everything in those days, it was just like gothic. But I had enough experience just to keep my mouth moving, enough bombs, enough the 10,000